Hello again and welcome to another edition of Suds and Country. Hi, I'm Herb Suds and welcome to the show, my friends. We're here in Teterboro, New Jersey, at the Teterboro Airport, where we're at the New Jersey Aviation Hall of Fame and Museum. And the man next to me is the executive director, and he's going to tell us what we're going to see in this show and where we're standing, by the way. And tell us about Teterboro Airport first, and then tell us about where we're standing.
Well, Teterboro Airport is the oldest continually active airport in New Jersey. It was opened in 1918 just to build airplanes, basically, at that point in time. But then many of the flights that everybody knows about, Amelia Earhart and Lindbergh and Admiral Byrd's flight, had their beginnings here because the airplanes were flight tested here or even built here, and the engines were built in Patterson, so they were installed here, and the Wright Aeronautical Corporation had a hangar here where they maintained the engines, and so everybody came here. Every important pilot of the early days came to Teterboro.
Now, what's Teterboro used for today?
Well, it's called a general aviation airport, and commercial flights don't go out of here. The only flights that go out are those owned by individuals or corporations, basically corporate jets.
And they're the biggest planes that are allowed to fly out of Teterboro Airport today.
That's right.
Okay. Now tell us where we're standing so we can walk around and take a look.
We're on the second floor of the Hall of Fame here today, and we have various parts of the history up here, and behind us is Women in Flight, and over here is Barnstormers, and so everything is sort of dedicated to various forms of aviation that had to do with New Jersey.
Well, Pat, we're in the barnstorming section of the museum. Tell us what part of history the barnstorming era played in it.
Well, after World War I, they got all of these planes that they could buy very cheaply, and people got together and went out and learned to do tricks. And barnstorming is basically flying with people standing on the wings and hanging from the various parts of the plane. I have a picture of a man hanging by his teeth underneath the plane. I mean, it's just amazing what they did. And then they took people up for rides. And that's the way basically they made their money. We had the Gates Flying Circus based here at Teterboro, and they were the leading barnstorming group of that time.
What year was that?
That was in
30s?
No, the 20s. Oh, the 20s, yeah. And actually they had to stop barnstorming by the 30s because the aircraft were considered not safe, and they had new regulations at that point in time. But these were World War I airplanes, and you know, they were made of wood and canvas, and they weren't considered safe to do it, so they put them out, sort of put them out of business.
What's a biplane?
Biplane is a plane with two wings, one on top of the other.
And what's the purpose of that?
Well, better. It lifted the plane off the ground better with two wings.
I see them in the air in the movies where they turn them upside down, fly upside down.
They can do any. We had one fellow that was called Upside Down Pangborn because he would fly. He flew the length of the Atlantic City boardwalk upside down.
Okay. Now, what's the difference between barnstorming and aerobatics today?
Well, aerobatics is basically barnstorming of that time, but they now do it at shows. They don't go around with their own team, and just, I mean, these guys would fly into an area and announce that they were coming, and they didn't even have an airport there. They'd land in some sort of a field and fly out of there.
Well, Pat, tell us a little about history about the airmail that existed in New Jersey.
Well, the thing about airmail is that they started out with carrying mail out from Long Island, but you had to fly over Manhattan to do it. So they decided to come to New Jersey, and they ended up at Hadley Field, which is in South Plainfield, or was in South Plainfield. And that became the center of all of the metropolitan area's airmail. They'd bring it out by train, and then they'd put it in these open cockpit biplanes, 2 wings planes, and they'd fly from there out to Cleveland. And then they'd go, the first night flight of airmail left from Hadley Field.
How many years ago? In the 20s?
This is in the 20s, yeah. 1925, they started.
And airmail, of course, costs more than it did a regular Pony Express, should I say?
Well, yeah. Sure. But in those days, what was it? 2 cents more or something, you know.
2 cents more, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So airmail had a big beginning right here. Is that the exact beginning of airmail?
Well, the first airmail flight in New Jersey,
okay.
and they thought it was the first in the country,
There you go.
was from South Amboy to Perth Amboy. And that was in a Wright Flyer, and that was 1912.
Okay, so that was also New Jersey.
That was New Jersey, too.
Now, New Jersey has quite a bit of history here at airmail, man.
Yes, it does.
All right. We're going to take a look around here at the airmail section of this museum. Well, Pat, we talked about a lot of the guys in history of aviation. Let's talk about some of the women.
Well, the, of course, most famous woman is Amelia Earhart. And Amelia Earhart flew the Atlantic twice. In 1928, she flew in an airplane built by Anthony Fokker here at Teterboro, and of course had Wright engines that were built in Patterson. And, but she never flew the plane. She was just a passenger and very upset by that. Then in 1932, she got her own plane, and all the preparation for the flight was done here at Teterboro. And she was helped by people here. And then they left from here and went up into Canada before she flew from there to Ireland. And, but we have people like Ruth Nichols, who flew out of the Jersey City airport, who set something like 32 records for women in various things, in speeds and heights and so forth. And she's one of the women that is a New Jerseyan.
Did women participate in barnstorming?
Yes, there were a couple of women that did some stunts in barnstorming, yes.
I'm looking right behind you. What's Anne Morrow Lindbergh's role in aviation?
Well, she flew with her husband, and they set the routes across the Atlantic and Pacific for Pan American Airways.
Back in the 20s?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And tell us quickly about Kathleen.
Well, Catherine Sullivan was the first woman to walk in space. She was an astronaut, and she was the first one to go outside of the space capsule and do work outside. She was from Patterson, New Jersey.
Unbelievable. I would never know all these women come from New Jersey.
Right, and of course, we had all those women that served as WASPs during the war.
Sure.
And they were a great service because the men could go out and fight the war instead of transporting planes around in the States, which is what they did.
Actually, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of women actually built planes and worked on assembly lines for them.
Of course.
During the war period.
During the war, oh yes.
Okay. Well, Pat, time to wrap up this edition of Suds and Country. Thank you for being here with me on Suds and Country. What didn't we see? What are the people going to see at home that we didn't see if they come here and visit you?
Well, we've got a MASH unit out in the back, and we also have a passenger plane that they can go aboard and just get the feeling of being on it's a 1950s passenger plane. And there's many other displays here inside the museum. For instance, our military display we didn't go over. But there's a lot to see, and we certainly invite everybody to come. We're open every day but Monday. So come see us.
We're here at the Aviation Hall of Fame Museum at the Teterboro Airport. And once again, I want to thank them for allowing us to be here, and thank you for your time, sir.